Yeah, I just directly report it. Okay. Okay. So let's resume. Okay. So I'm actually going to announce a bunch of keywords from that particular. By the way, this McDonald's no longer exists in Vegas. I don't know. It's probably because the competition. But there was a McDonald's. I don't think it's there anymore. Anybody use a McDonald's right next to Safe Mart? Is there a Safe Mart? So is there a McDonald's next to Safe Mart? So it's gone. Yeah. A few of my students, we actually discussed Caesars in this McDonald's. So I still remember that, but yeah, it's gone, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, so this McDonald's has a different kind of attribute that essentially it actually provide attribute, not just say on McDonald's, but this McDonald's is providing extra information to tell the people what they want other people to know about me. So instead of having a unique identity, you can actually provide whatever feature you want and then just send it out through your social network. So essentially, this actually will differentiate different McDonald's. Because if I have a choice, go to different McDonald's, and then I actually look at this McDonald's actually hosting a particular party I want to participate, then I know that's the McDonald's I want to go. And then similarly, that McDonald's become a person, then that person can actually decide what I want other people to know about me. And I want to propagate that information in the social network. So when I actually want to find the person, I mean, for example, this is the protocol that I imagine. Just an example. Say yesterday, I have a meeting with, I will meet someone in a party or conference I never met before. So what we exchange, we're not exchanging an email address or IP address. Those are reliable identity. But we actually generate a secure random string. So both of us can actually remember that this random string when we met, like an exchange business card, only these two people knows about this string for this connection, okay? And the thing is that today, I'm actually going to go out to look for that person using that network. Of course, I can use that string and try to see, oh, who I actually had with this string. But that's actually kind of dangerous. First, you have to reveal that secret. And second, this string is, by the way, not very meaningful. So it's actually going to be flooding and it's actually not going to work. But instead, because your relationship, you also exchange a few keywords that you want to add to that, such as this. So essentially, you use the keyword to limit the propagation of your search in such that you can connect. Once you connect, you can verify whether that person really holding the same string. Then you can do a challenge and then see if that. So that's kind of the general idea about this type of communication. But I only have about 7 minutes. I'm actually going to go something very quick. So this is just the way we actually implement in our, so essentially what I'm saying is that the keyword got propagated over here. And then I'm actually try to, let me actually skip this. And then what we did is that we actually look at the trust value along the path to decide whether this keyword should be propagated. So essentially, who is the trust value? I actually say, well, unless you're my friend. So if this person is your friend, you better have a trust value maybe greater than 0.5, for example. And then you can actually specify how much trust value is needed for this keyword to be propagated. So in other words, for you to be able to communicate with another person, that this person must already have some trust value. And the other thing which is important, you see that I put the Davis here, there is a community attribute that's being added in this propagation, which I'm not going to tell you that, but the community attribute is basically say, well, whether this group of people belong to this community called UC Davis, for example, and therefore within the community, we actually will be able to communicate without computing those kind of TNA, those kind of 3 score. But the community itself is actually very interesting definition that we can actually define. Okay, but I want to actually just mention the idea this way. So essentially, we're saying that we can communicate with the people we trust. And we can actually communicate with people that's reasonably close to us. Because the propagation cannot be too far. It has to be limited because the system has, so this is great for creating what do I call, echo of a chamber or filter bubble, and things work out that way. But it's actually work out that way without the global unique identity. Okay, but the thing is that the problem of this is always criticized about global connectivity. Because when we do this, where do I get remote people? Say I want to reach out to somebody in West Africa. And I want to help them, but I have no connection. I have no connection. And therefore, when you have this kind of connection, you want to help someone, and then it's not globally connected based on the system I just described. And that is actually a very important shortcoming about what the whole system is. Is it? So here's my typical argument. When this part of the world want to actually communicate with, say, UC Davis professor of agriculture, the communication works this way. If I don't do anything, just like today's internet or today's email address, that the way anybody in that part of the world will communicate with each one of us is actually going to be very small anyway. They need us, but there's nothing they can do, right? And assuming they don't have the resources to find somebody who is actually important. Well, however, when we look at the real world scenario, if UC Davis as a global outreach university, we really want to connect to certain area because our faculty have some of us actually study issue or study resources in that particular area. So the communication works this way. If we actually interested in that area for our professional or for our personal preference, then we actually need to establish social connection over there. So it's always you realize from a poor country try to actually connect to a rich country, it's usually much harder than the other way around because a country with more resources is always have their way of connecting to, if you look at a lot of instances in the human history, that's actually something very interesting for us to consider. So therefore, in this scenario, what's going to happen is that if within UC Davis or College of Agriculture and Environmental Science, that they actually want to help that part of the world, they actually want to find out the people over there. People, I mean, for example, their academics or their local government or their local representative that's actually, that we know that's actually desperate in need. And we actually contact that person. When that contact established, now that social connection is one hop. And that connection established is much easier for UC Davis, for them to actually connect with UCA because they are going to connect through that particular connection over here. Okay, so that's kind of the argument for that. But finally, I'm actually going to come back to the last part. about the, I'm sorry, I have to skip a lot of detail, but I'm actually going to this part, which is the Pakistan hijack. I mentioned earlier that the YouTube is actually being hijacked by Pakistan autonomous system for a long period of time. So, so the idea is that the way they address this, they have to essentially get the cooperation from Pakistan Telecom to ask them stop doing that connection. But that is the, in my opinion, that's too slow. That's a wrong approach because you have to wait a telecom company in another country with a different time zone to fix a problem they might not even want to fix. Okay, so the way we do it in the DSL, which is the network architecture, is that, remember, I don't have a routable identity. Anybody can claim you're YouTube. So I am actually connecting to all the YouTube according to my social network. So there is a possibility that somebody who actually got offended by YouTube that is actually find a route to go to whatever Pakistan routed into. And maybe he's so happy about that. That's fine. But what you can do is that this also restrict that when I contact the YouTube, I might actually get multiple YouTube. That is a feature, not a restriction. Today's internet routing will only give you one because DNS resolved that, and IP address unique. You actually stuck with only one option. But over here, what you can do is that you actually can connect to multiple YouTube. In this case, I'm actually connected to YouTube. One is Pakistan, one is the real Google YouTube. And then when we do something we call application test. Application test means I watch a few minutes of the YouTube in both sides. And then I decide which one I want. Then I'm actually from application layer to select the social layer because social layer mandate which YouTube I'm connecting to. From the application layer, I actually choose, I want this social layer, and then connect to the YouTube I prefer. So essentially what we're saying is that, why do I need to have a unique YouTube? As long as you provide a similar service I'm happy with the acceptable social network layer, then I can connect to that. So that's what I want to tell you today is essentially I would say a bit controversial, a bit challenging, critical thinking on today's idea of a global routable identity. Meaning that today we all do URL, we all do identity from layer 7 to layer 2, or sorry, layer 3. In some sense that we might have an alternative way to actually handle this, and which has some nice property. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Any question? So I forgot to tell you, this is the it's a multi-pass idea, and it's basically it's a unique routable identity versus application dependent credential that you want to deal with. Okay. All right. So today I won't have office hour, but tomorrow I'll have office hour because today I have a conflict with another meeting schedule. Okay, just let everybody know.